Some time ago, I wondered how the world would react to the emergence of a figure like Slim Shady nowadays, and whether the controversy that was his greatest asset in the early 2000s would prove to be the nail in the coffin today. Well, either I'm clairvoyant or Eminem can read my mind and decided to test my idea on his new album, The Death of Slim Shady. Why does Eminem's latest album hit so hard? And why are some people missing the point? Let's break down the genius behind this album and how it reflects the world we live in today. According to many people, Shady is too controversial by today's standards and pushes the boundaries too far in his lyrics to be accepted, like when we first heard the white rapper with dyed hair. It seems that just showing this was Marshall's main idea on his latest project. Contrary to what many listeners think, Slim Shady didn't come out of the time portal to play around in our time from now on for the rest of Eminem's career, but to show us that he doesn't really belong here. We live in a time when tolerance and political correctness are a very important aspect of the culture, and particular groups are sensitive to statements that might offend someone in some way. However, on The Death of Slim Shady, most of the lyrics focus precisely on hitting these sensitivities and addressing the most sensitive topics of our time. In this way, Marshall wants to portray Slim as a villain who cares only about mocking and stirring up controversy. At the same time, this contrasts significantly with the persona of Eminem himself, who has tried to address more and more serious and difficult topics over the last years of his career. Moreover, one of Eminem's children has publicly announced that they identify as a non-binary person. After all this, M still mentions them in his lyrics using their newly adopted name, so we can see that what Slim is saying and laughing at is unlikely to be entirely consistent with Marshall's current worldview. On The Death of Slim Shady, it is presented in a very clear way how Shady is in complete opposition to the popular opinions of the day, but also to Eminem himself. The whole concept of the album is based on showing this conflict. Eminem performs a kind of self-psychoanalysis and attributes everything he dislikes about himself or his life to Shady's character. However, a lot of people have interpreted individual songs in a literal way, criticizing the Detroit rapper, calling him immature, and complaining how a man of more than 50 years can say such things. It must be said that Marshall has cleverly protected himself in advance from these criticisms in a way that reminds me a bit of what B-Rabbit did during his last battle in the movie 8 Mile. Namely, adopting a narrative on the album that what he talks about will be criticized and people will want to cancel him, which is summed up in the breaking news skit. In this way, Marshall preempted the voices of criticism so that now he can only say, "There you are, what did I tell you?" Besides, I think that those who criticize this album for what is said on it simply do not understand its concept. Eminem made it clear before the release that this is a conceptual album and should be listened to as a whole so that everything retains its proper meaning. For this reason, we can treat it as if everything on this album takes place in a separate universe created by Eminem, in which Slim Shady travels in time and tries to spite the world and Marshall himself. That's why we can't take what he says completely seriously. The lyrics are written from the perspective of an exaggerated character and are not in line with what Marshall really believes. Slim Shady was always a character that pushed boundaries, often in ways that were shocking and controversial. In The Death of Slim Shady, Eminem continues this tradition, but with a twist. He's now using Slim Shady to highlight how out of step this character would be in today's hypersensitive, politically correct culture. However, because a lot of people took Marshall's words literally, criticism and outrage over the album's lyrics were raised. Paradoxically, this is what largely determined that there was so much interest in this album, and its publicity ultimately contributed to its great performance and overall success. It can be summed up in the words, "It doesn't matter what they say, it matters that they say it." On the other hand, some listeners are viewing the album as merely a nostalgic throwback to the early 2000s, focusing on the revival of Slim Shady's voice and persona without considering the deeper implications. They see the album as a celebration of Slim Shady's return, rather than understanding it as a critique of that very nostalgia. For this reason, many people are excited about the return of M's old style, hoping that it will be maintained on future projects. But Eminem isn't just bringing back Slim Shady for the sake of reliving the past. He's using this resurrection to critique how the world and himself has changed. The album plays with nostalgia, but ultimately serves as a commentary on how clinging to the past can be both comforting and destructive. By focusing solely on the fun aspects of Slim Shady's return, some fans miss the underlying message that this persona may no longer fit in today's society and could possibly cause harm and damage in the long run. In the end, The death of Slim Shady isn't just about saying goodbye to an old character. It's about Eminem confronting his own legacy and the world that shaped it. It's a bold statement about the past, the present, and the future of not just Slim Shady, but Marshall Mathers himself. Do you think Eminem was right to bury Slim Shady, or should he have kept him around a little longer? Do you think Slim Shady could survive in today's world, or is it time for him to go? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of Eminem. Until next time, peace.